Have you ever wondered how one ordinary person can change the fate of millions? Not with wealth, not with political power, not with an army, but with a heart that simply refused to look away. Today, almost every country in the world recognizes the Red Cross as a symbol of hope. It appears on ambulances, hospitals, disaster relief missions, and war zones. But very few people know the heartbreaking story behind that symbol. It all began with one man, one battlefield, and one unforgettable night. This is the true story of Henri Dunant. Henri Dunant was born in Geneva, Switzerland in 1828. His family was comfortable and deeply devoted to helping those in need. As a child, Henri often accompanied his parents when they visited prisons, cared for poor families, and comforted the sick. From an early age, he learned an important lesson. Every human life has value. Still, Henri did not imagine he would become one of history's greatest humanitarians. He dreamed of success in business. As a young man, he became involved in banking and hoped to expand his commercial ventures across Europe and North Africa. In 1859, he traveled to northern Italy to meet Emperor Napoleon III regarding a business matter. He expected a meeting. Instead, he walked into one of the bloodiest battlefields Europe had ever seen. The Battle of Solferino. More than 300,000 soldiers fought that day. When the fighting ended, around 40,000 men were dead, dying, or horribly wounded. The battlefield stretched for miles. The cries of pain echoed through the evening air. Broken bodies lay scattered across the fields. Many soldiers had been abandoned where they fell. There were not enough doctors, not enough medicine, not enough hands. Henri Dunant stood frozen. He had never seen suffering on such a scale. He later wrote that the sight haunted him forever. But unlike many others who simply turned away, Henri stayed. He rushed into nearby villages and pleaded with local people to help the wounded, regardless of which army they belonged to. The villagers hesitated. Many saw enemy soldiers as enemies even after the battle. Henri repeated one simple phrase over and over again. Tutti fratelli. We are all brothers. Those words changed everything. Women, farmers, priests, and ordinary citizens began carrying water, cleaning wounds, comforting strangers, and caring for soldiers from both sides without discrimination. For days, Henri worked almost without rest. He was not a doctor. He was not a soldier. He was simply a man who believed compassion should never have borders. When he finally returned home to Geneva, he could not sleep. The images followed him everywhere. The cries, the blood, the faces of young men who died simply because no one reached them in time. Henri realized something that changed history. War might never disappear, but unnecessary suffering could be reduced. In 1862, he published a book titled A Memory of Solferino. It was not merely a description of war. It was a challenge to humanity. He proposed two revolutionary ideas. First, every country should establish volunteer relief organizations trained to care for wounded soldiers during war. Second, nations should agree to protect medical workers and hospitals, no matter which side they served. Many people dismissed the ideas as unrealistic. Some thought they were impossible. Others believed governments would never cooperate. But Henri refused to give up. His words spread across Europe. Leaders, doctors, military officers, and philanthropists began discussing his proposals. Only 1 year later, in 1863, a small committee in Geneva was formed. That committee would eventually become the International Committee of the Red Cross. The following year, representatives from 12 nations signed the First Geneva Convention. For the first time in history, countries formally agreed that wounded soldiers deserved protection and medical care, regardless of nationality. One man's compassion had become international law. It was an extraordinary achievement. Yet Henri Dunant's personal story did not end in triumph. While he devoted his energy to humanitarian work, his business collapsed. He declared bankruptcy. Many former supporters abandoned him. His reputation suffered. He spent years living in poverty. For decades, the man who inspired one of the world's greatest humanitarian movements was largely forgotten. He moved from place to place, often relying on small charitable donations. His health declined. His clothes became worn. He lived quietly in a nursing home in the Swiss village of Heiden. Most people had no idea who he was. Then, in the 1890s, a journalist discovered him. The remarkable story of the forgotten founder spread across newspapers. People were shocked. How could the man whose vision had saved countless lives be living in such humble circumstances? Recognition slowly returned. Finally, in 1901, Henri Dunant received the very first Nobel Peace Prize. The world had remembered him. When asked about his life's work, he never spoke of personal greatness. He believed every human being deserved dignity, even in the darkest moments of war. He once wrote that humanity must never become accustomed to suffering. Henri Dunant passed away in 1910 at the age of 82. By then, the movement he had inspired had already spread across continents. Today, the Red Cross and Red Crescent organizations operate in nearly every corner of the world. They respond to wars, natural disasters, epidemics, refugee crises, and countless emergencies where hope seems almost impossible to find. Millions of volunteers continue the work that began because one businessman refused to walk away from wounded strangers on a battlefield. His greatest achievement was never creating an organization. It was reminding humanity that compassion is stronger than hatred, that kindness is not weakness, and that one person's courage can inspire generations. Henri Dunant teaches us a timeless truth. Most people believe history is changed by kings, presidents, or generals. But sometimes, history is changed by someone who simply stops, looks at another human being, and says, "I will not leave you behind." The next time you see the Red Cross on an ambulance, a disaster relief tent, or a medical worker's uniform, remember the man behind that symbol. Remember that every act of compassion, no matter how small, carries the power to echo across centuries. Because the world does not always need more powerful people. Sometimes, it simply needs more people who care enough to act. If this story touched your heart, gave you hope, or helped you see life from a new perspective, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to support our channel and help us continue sharing meaningful stories. Thank you so much for watching.